Okay, our main star is now 6:33. We please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mrs. Munson.
Andrew Benson. Here. Katrina Binkowitz. Here. Doug Day.
Here.
Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edwin Green.
Here. First order of business is the New York State Department of Transportation discussion. Actually, this is an FYI. We have Brian Bouchard here, I believe. He was nice enough to, in his busy schedule, hang around after the open house today. And he's going to give us a brief overview. Let me just say nothing's written in stone, but he's going to bring us up to date as far as what's going on. So, Brian, thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. My name is Brian Bouchard with CHA Consulting. So I'm the project engineer working on behalf of the New York State DOT for the proposed Tompkins County sub-residency on Warren Road. This is part of the county lands that are undeveloped, larger parcel of 53 acres about. And the proposed project would be on the northern portion of the site on approximately 15 acres that serves the needs for the relocation of the sub-residency. What we're proposing is one driveway off of Warren Road that would be constructed to county standards, such that our facility would access through this single driveway, but the driveway could also, in the future, be extended to what is a significant portion of remaining lands within that county property. The facility itself would house space for 40 employees. This would be their maintenance facility for servicing trucks and storage of the trucks to facilitate their snow operations and their maintenance of their roads. It would also have a salt barn. There's a storage building on the site, and obviously all the site infrastructure that would be needed as far as the parking area, the pavement surfaces, the storage, the stormwater management, and the like. I believe what we're here for tonight is also a discussion on the utilities, specific to the fact that only a portion of the county lands along Warren Road are currently included within the sewer district. And because our project extends beyond the existing sewer district, we're requesting that the town consider expansion of that sewer district to include the entirety of the proposed New York State DOT property. We also had a public hearing tonight where some of the residents also expressed their desire, residents on Hillcrest Road, to also be included within the sewer district. And the department would be fine with honoring that request if the board should feel that it's necessary. I believe perhaps larger conversation with the county would be required, but I believe the county's intent is to leave out the remaining lands, simply to include the New York State DOT property, which has known flows and data that could be associated with the sewer district extension, along with those residential properties that we also know definitively what they are, and leave the remaining county lands for a time when you can pinpoint the flows and not make an assumption and have to go back through the process. So if there's any questions, I guess, for the greater good of the project, I can try and answer them. I'm really the site design engineer, kind of heading off sort of the utility extensions as far as the sewer and water services to the building that we'd be requesting. And I understand that the department would be paying the fee to prepare, for the town's engineer to prepare the map plan and report that would document the project's flows and the pathway that it takes, understandably, through the village on its way to the treatment plant, and also modifying those municipal agreements as it might be necessary.
Okay, before I open up the floor to the board, this is simply a board interaction with you, since we already had the public meetings. And I don't think that's going to be the last one. I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversation. I just want to premise this that you are here as a courtesy to us, and that you are simply doing your job that you've been directed to, and this is not your personal ideology, nor is this your personal plan. So with this frustration, I would hope that they address it to the board at a later date, but we're here just to bring the board up to speed as far as that goes. I will share this with you. I met with you already with the Water Supervisory Board that we have stressed, and you acknowledge that you'll follow through, that you contact the other two parties involved in this, the other two different municipalities, the Village of Lansing and those two heights, because, like I said before, we are the three-legged stool. 2 out of 3 doesn't work, and out of courtesy to them, my personal attitude and opinion is that they have to be on board first before we move forward, and I'm sure that'll happen. I just want to say that for the record, that, you know, we're looking at this with an open mind, but they also have to be satisfied where this is set up and how the product is mitigated. Okay?
Correct.
So if the other board members want to respectfully ask our guests questions, feel free.
Yeah, my understanding is there's going to be a truck washing station within this, and I'm concerned about how much of our sewer capacity could be used up by a truck washing station.
Correct. Within the facility, there will be a simple hose bib and a spray wand, so it's really nothing more than a residential pressure washer. It's not a commercial washing facility. We have those flows included with what we've given to the town engineer as far as the flows. You know, we go through the proposed sewer flows as having 40 employees per day. This is obviously their own sewer use and the small kitchen use that we have. But we have included 900 gallons per day within our overall 2,500 gallons per day for 10 trucks to be washed at 30 minutes each with this pressure washer. So basically, it's not to sparkle clean the trucks like a fire department would. I mean, really, they come into the bay, they get hosed down for sand and grit, and then they get stored for the remainder of the evening. So our assumptions are probably very conservative, where I can't imagine a single spray wand taking 30 minutes to spray down a truck just for the sand and grit that's on them. But we've used those numbers to be conservative in our estimates. This also may be obvious, but you know, during the summer months, the wash bay wouldn't be used as much. So we're still, once again, using those sewer flows as our overall flows, which is a daily flow. But obviously, during the summer, those flows will be significantly less.
So are you talking about a flow that's an average throughout the year? So could we have potential peak problems in which sometime during the winter you're washing the trucks heavily and we have a peak outflow into the sewers because you're using them really heavily?
The number that we've given you is the peak. And I guess what I was trying to explain is that during the summer, it would actually be significantly less than that. So,
how big is the actual facility?
the facility itself is, like square footage wise, I assume you're talking about, right?
Right.
We have maintenance facility itself is 30,000 square feet. It's obviously a single story. The cold storage area is 5,000 square feet. That houses the longer plow trucks that they have now, the tandem trucks. The salt barn is 8,200 square feet. And there's also a small covered lean-to for storage that's 2,500 square feet. So the purpose is for 10 plow trucks and the storage of their tandem plow as well.
Do you have potential for expansion? So we improve the sewer district here, and then suddenly we've discovered that you've got a much heavier use in the future.
The number of 40 employees includes what they would anticipate for additional employees in the future.
So are you planning on expanding?
No. Obviously, because this is a new project, they have a good feel for their needs and understanding that this is a new facility. The facility itself is being designed for, you know, the 40 years that they have there.
And you couldn't fit the facility in the current sewer district?
No, we couldn't actually. There's only a couple hundred feet along the road frontage that was included within the existing district, and the remaining county lands was left out of that. So I believe it was set up anticipating perhaps even just a single-family home, so that type of depth within a couple hundred feet. So our facility itself is actually beyond that limit, and really that limit kind of would only include really just the access road.
And you say you're going to include the residents along Hillcrest, are you talking about New York State paying for their hookups, or are you just talking about saying you don't mind if they're included in?
No, my understanding is that this is really the town's board's decision as far as the limits of what the sewer district extension would be.
Right.
And the discussion was in our commissioning and payment of the map planner report that would describe the sewer district, it would be beneficial to those residents for us to do that now while we're requesting the extension, and they could be included within the map revision and the legal process to include that. But no, there wouldn't be any construction of facilities to extend sewer to their properties.
Thank you.
Does any other board members have questions? Going once, going twice. Ms. Bouchard, have a safe drive home. On to our next item, 5, privilege of the floor. We're doing a maximum of 3 minutes. Mrs. Munson, you're in charge of that, and limited to 20 minutes total. I would recommend and also state that these are to be respectful comments directed to the town board and the town board only, and that to stay on subject. If one becomes abrasive, obnoxious, or starts to slander our employees, I will ask to warn them once, and the second time I'll ask them to leave. So, having said that, do we have a sign-up sheet for the floor? Okay, first one up we have is Steve Smith.
You know, I might sound like a broken record, but this rod and gun situation is probably the biggest thing that's happened to Lumberville since, I would say, the water district came. It's huge. And one of my main problems with it was never put to the full board. We didn't really get the full faith and backing of the town of Lansing with it. You know, there were some other issues that happened. We won't get into that. And like I said, there is a small, passionate group but it's backed by 100 people that live in the area that have an issue with this thing. So, you know, it's just, you know, they're the most affected people. So, you know, I don't know what else, but, you know, my thing is I would like the whole board to vote on whether this happens or not. And, you know, the small group has put up the money, hired a lawyer, and done all this stuff to try to make this happen. So, obviously, you know, we have millions of dollars worth of real estate that's, you know, being affected, you know, and it's going to raise the taxes if we have a better neighborhood and stuff like that. So it's good for the town if it's, this situation is dealt with. So I guess that's my message. I'd like a full vote from the town board on this issue that is so important to Lumberville, which has been there for 200 years. So that's my message.
Okay, thank you. Number 2 is John Berger.
I'd also like to address the same issue, and unfortunately I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, and I would like to really actually respond to something that you just said, Ed, about comments. I listened very carefully to the last meeting, and I was quite taken with something that Mr. Crowe said about the town, about comments being hostile to the town. I feel like this is very important in terms of having a democratic process that people can state their opinions respectfully. And I think I didn't hear anyone not stating their opinion respectfully. I feel like this is very important coming up to the zoning board of appeal, because I feel like there's sort of a chilling atmosphere when we talk about people stating their opinions and saying that they're being abrasive. I feel like this is a misrepresentation, and it's important for somebody, myself and others, to speak and say that that's not what we're doing at all. We shouldn't even really need to say that, but I feel like, you know, in all due show integrity, I would suggest to Mr. Crowe that.
Mr. Berger, please address it to the town board.
Yeah, town board.
Mr.
Okay.
Crowe is an
Yeah.
employee of ours, he's an consultant. If you have any concerns, please address them to the town board only.
Town board only, okay. I think it would be an excellent idea if the town board, the zoning board was to ask Mr. Crowe to recuse himself from the zoning board of appeal, because I feel like his actions and his opinions have been so closely allied with the opinion of Mr. Lynn Day, and that opinion is exactly the same as the opinion of the gun club, which has basically been given to us by Barclay and Gammon, the law firm, and Mike Orpolo, who's one of their main lawyers. On his website it says that, and this is one of the reasons why people come to him for representation, that he has successfully moved to dismiss claims in the Clean Water Act citizen suit upon grounds that the agency was diligently prosecuting the case. So this is what they do, is that their bread and butter is stopping citizens from having any say in issues related to the health and well-being of their communities. So I feel like for that purpose, it would be an excellent act for the town board, the zoning board, to ask Mr. Crowe if he would be willing to step aside. And because if his opinion is so based on the law, then he could be confident that another attorney would see things the same way that he does. And so I would like to be suggested, I'm not sure what the process is, but I feel like it's just a clear, apparent conflict of interest. How can somebody represent an unbiased, you know, represent the zoning board and explain the law when they've been instrumental in creating the interpretation that is the basis for the appeal? And the appeal, by the way, it says...
Okay, Mr. Berger, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Number 3 is we have Sean Scanlon.
Sean Scanlon, I live at 51 Hillcrest Road, one of the 4 homeowners and property owners who are going to be subsumed by the DOT transportation station, substation that's going in there. Our neighbors, Bill Lamore, Kennedy Smith, are actually at 16 Hillcrest Road, and they literally will be subsumed. This property is going to wrap around the 1815 historic home they live in. It's a house eligible for National Register of Historic Standards. This whole process is incredibly frustrating to local homeowners, and we've received no representation by the county. We've received no fair treatment by the FAA, the airport, in Whitehall, and so we're coming to try to speak to the town to continue to do whatever we can to discuss this. What was stated by the consultant previously, one, he misstated his own environmental assessment. He just quoted you a 30,000 square foot building. You'll see on page 26 of the environmental assessment, they state the impacts of a 10,000 square foot building they studied. And there's many other issues than that, including the statement that the effect of 12 snow trucks at midnight in our neighborhood working full-time, 30 trucks per hour at peak time, is going to increase the sound in our neighborhood by 2 decibels. 2 decibels is under the threshold of hearing. We couldn't communicate 2 decibels. I mean, it just defies common sense. I'll go on to say that the really disgusting thing about this is the exchange that's happening here, the FAA and the federal government forcing the county to sell the land to the DOT for the exchange to free up the land where the DOT currently is, allows the county to get $43 million worth of property back on the county tax rolls. This is all being financed and put on the back of the values of our homes. We're going to lose tens of thousands of dollars of equity in our biggest asset that we have. We're going to lose the environment around our houses. We're going to lose our neighborhood that we really strongly love to live in, too. We love being part of Lansing because of the open spaces. They're going to build this unbelievable facility there. We don't want the sewer district extended to our house. We don't want this property put on Warren Road on top of our homes. It's insulting. It's unbelievable lack of representation. And I'm aware that this town board, Mr. Wetmore, Mr. Levine, were very helpful in explaining some of these things to me recently, and that it's not your jurisdiction in this regard. However, I will urge you that we need help and we need representation, that the very last step along this way, this approval of the sewer, is literally the only thing that's holding the state and the federal government in the form of the FAA from taking full advantage. They know that they can plow right over 4 local homeowners. That's not a big deal, and that's why this was done. There are literally thousands of open acres of land in Tompkins County, as we all know, that do not abut a single homeowner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. I have no one else that has signed up. Does anybody else want to exercise the privilege of the floor? If not, we move on. Next, number 6. The one we've all been waiting for. 2019 organizational resolutions. I have a question for you, just for some guidance. How many of these do we have to read out loud?
Well, according to town law and according to the Association of Towns, no, they have to be in writing. Salaries have to be read aloud at budget time. This came up last year and the year before, and we read them because of tradition. If there are significant changes, you certainly are free to cover those. They're in writing. You just have to move and second them, either as a group or individually. Shorthand them if you want to do something, but there doesn't appear to be a requirement that I found in town law that says they have to be recited. They have to be in writing.
So my question to our clerk is, how long has this been on the website?
How long is this?
Has this organization, I know we've been working on this for like almost 2
It's
months.
been on the website since Monday.
Okay.
The town board has had it for 2
Okay.
months, but it's been on the website since Monday.
Is there a copy of the audience to look at?
It's all right up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put it to
I'd like to
the...
move them all.
Okay.
There is a resolution, 19-45, which does move them all together. It lists number 1 through 44, including all of them at the same time.
What I would recommend to the board, of course, they can disagree, come up with another suggestion,
Page 16.
is if there are any changes you want to discuss, you want to add on, you want to make comments to, I think that would be appropriate. Other than that, everything is in front of us, it's been in front of us for a long time. I don't see any advantage if this is available to our residents to read every word here. I'll leave it up to the board how we want to decide this.
There's just a
I'd like to
few.
move the resolution. The other board members don't want to know.
Well,
Yes, that's what I was saying. You have to move it before you can.
okay. How's the rest of the board feel about this?
That's fine.
Okay, I'm fine with this. Okay, I have Andres made the motion and Joe seconded it. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about page 13. It talks about a certificate of insurance to use the community center, and I'm wondering how that's enforced and who has to show insurance and under what circumstances, because I know that can be a real barrier to an unincorporated group of people who want to use the community center for something.
It's a question for Catherine.
Patrick?
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the hot seat. Insurance for the community center, how is that rule, has that been enforced? Is that something that we ask people for insurance?
Yeah, if it's an outside agency, we do get a certificate of insurance from them.
How about me and my friends want to play cards and we need a big room and want to use the community center? You're asking for insurance?
Probably, in that case, yes.
Have we been doing this all along?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Boy Scouts have it, AA has it.
Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts,
Lions Club,
et cetera,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any homeowner that wants to rent it for a birthday party or some sort of party or reception, we have to have certificate of insurance.
So don't they usually get some little addendum on their own policy?
Yeah,
Show you?
Yeah.
Because we have the same
And
thing
it doesn't
at our
normally
church.
cost
Yeah.
them anything, they just
Right.
need it, and it gets faxed to us, and we have a
Okay.
Are there
They get a
any,
one-day.
was there any specific concerns addressed to you, or you just,
I just.
just think outside the box?
People see that and see it as a, what do you call it? As a
Deterrent?
impediment to using the space, and I want people to freely use the space. I want to see it used a lot. And I know it's booked up a lot, but it's a community asset, and I want the community to use it. And I don't want them to feel that there's a barrier to them using it.
I agree. The insurance thing is a simple phone call. They can
It is a phone call.
send an email and get that certificate of insurance sent to us. It's not hard.
Maybe if that was explained in the rules or,
We do
Yeah.
explain it when somebody comes
Okay.
in to reserve it, so.
because it is easy, yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question on page 12. The proposed slips for the electric is a yellow. Is that a new fee?
No,
No.
No.
that's just the color. I don't think the yellow was doing anything new. I think it was just they kind of highlight that on their list.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Were there any substantial changes in the fee structure that anyone knows of?
For our fee structure, so as per some of the conversations with the board, we now have resident rate for most of the things, well, actually everything in the park, there's a resident and non-resident rate. So I know I spoke to a couple of you about it, so we're giving the taxpayers rates, so.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Any other comments? I would direct the board to page 3, resolution 19-15. This is supervisor may direct investment general fund, special district funds, highway money not obligated or required for immediate expenditure or distribution of United States Treasury bills, saving accounts, time deposits, or time certificates of deposits to the town's official depository banks, with said deposits or investments to be payable or redeemable at the option of the supervisor at such time as the proceeds may be needed to meet expenditures for which these monies are provided and pursuant to the provisions of the investment policy of the town. If I was a town board member, I would reject that. What I will do is,
That's only a year.
well, what I will do is, misery of those companies, no, what I will do is that we're now in the process, January 25th, a meeting with the Tompkins Trust Company to go over a proposal for them. And the investment policy asked for 3 proposals. We're looking to go for an RFP. It seems that we talked earlier about the investment, now that things are nudging up and money's being freed. My personal opinion is if we can get a reasonable rate, I'll put it that way, from one of these institutions as opposed to going through the minutia of investment information and trying to get a yes from all the no's or I don't knows, this is where kind of guy would appreciate all this, that I think it would be comfortable to the board to see, okay, I looked at the investment policy of the county. They spread theirs around as it also is an investment policy. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, regardless of what that is. Even if it's protected by the FDIC up to $250,000. Briefly, and I will talk about this later, as we close the books, we have sums of money floating out there that have some, and I would like input from Andra, because you've been there before, or Joe, or Katrina, or Doug, where you want to go with this amount, where you want to go with this amount, get some feedback first before you, I don't mind doing this, but out of respect to the rest of the board, as we go into uncharted water, I think we can set a pretty good precedent going forward as far as what the template is for future boards.
I have a quick question for Guy. Are we required to bid this out in any way?
It's not really procurement, but it is a service, so under general municipal law, no, but under the comptroller's guidelines and recommendations to make sure you get the best interest rate, yes, you should shop it.
Investment policy, item 6B, says at least the town of Lansing will encourage the purchase and sale of securities and certificates of deposit through a competitive or negotiated process involving telephone solicitation of at least 3 bids for each transaction.
That's consistent with what the comptroller wants when you're doing things like lease financing, investment, because different banks have different rates, and the interest rate alone isn't necessarily determinative of your return, because they can have fees, they can have other things. And you know, the cost of the institution can be substantially varied based upon how they securitize it. But I believe our policy is consistent with the best practice in the state, and that is 100% U.S. Treasury security. So our policy requires it. You can always change the policy, but I would recommend it. You should be shopping for the best interest rate.
That we can get.
Yeah.
based on our credit.
Well, I mean, assuming it's a depository bank that you recognize, that it's chartered in New York, that you're properly secured.
Yeah.
Your money's secured and guaranteed to the extent you have a drop in above FDIC limits. And there are some banks that routinely do this and others that don't. So it's not just apples and oranges. It's more like pencils and suspension bridges. When you talk to a bank that knows this stuff, they know exactly what you're asking.
What I would recommend, out of courtesy to the board, is that we go through, and when the time is right, to go through a resolution of some sort or a discussion saying that the board approves of this, this, and this.
So do you want to change this?
No, what I'm saying is that you may want to either, for now, you have me on tape that saying I'm not going to plow ahead and do this. But if you want to put something in there to say, perhaps a paragraph or a line saying, upon approval of the town board, that the town supervisor has the right, or something along those lines. I mean, like I said, I don't mind it myself, but I'm saying that as a courtesy to the board, since we're in uncharted water here, if you want to do that. If not, we can keep it the way it is, and we can still have those discussions ahead of time, because the board can always change the resolution. I mean, that's the safety net here, is if we don't follow through with the procedure, you say, whoa, Ed, you told me you're going to do this, and all of a sudden not, we're going to change the resolution.
Well, I think we can also change the investment policy of the town to say that it requires to get our advice before moving and stuff like that.
Well, you can do it one of two ways, and that's fine, and that's fine. I mean, you can leave it the way this is. I'm going to get concerned about the next 2 months or so. What if we have concrete bids and we want to move forward? What do we do then? You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it could be just a gentleman's agreement with the board and with ladies, or not. I don't care. I mean, this is the policy it is. That's fine. I don't care. What I care, though, is I want to get the rest of the board involved with this process.
I want to be involved. I'd like to go over the investment policy, and that's one of the things I'd like to work on this year, is working on that and cleaning it up a little bit. So if you're going to keep us involved, I'm okay with that. Maybe we can add a quick clause that says the supervisor with advice from the board. So it just says you'll talk to us.
With board input?
With board input.
We okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll put with board input.
At the end.
Yeah.
I was going to put it at the beginning. Resolve that the supervisor with board input.
Yeah, I put it right at the beginning.
Okay, any other comments, questions, concerns? If not, we'll stop the discussion process and move on to the Samantha? I know, you're expecting a lot.
Okay, so Andrew made the motion and
And Joe seconded it.
to start with.
And that is going through page,
We're on page 16, number, agenda 7, resolution 1945.
Right.
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Gay.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
yes,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Reports. Now we're up to, I believe, number 8. Town Historian 2018 report is in front of you in your packet. I will use this as a segue that Louise sent us 3 different names for the road, which I'll share with the board probably within a week or so, email them to you as far as perspective. I think one is Strominger. Up there they found either a headstone or something with that name on it, but where they've been talked about, my notes in front of me, I'll share that with the board. And if you think of other names that you want to name for that road, so be it, okay?
did you get some history people as well?
She did. She said, here's the reason why.
Okay.
Here's the reason why. I can pull it up real fast. got the report for Louise. Next, we have the report of the library. Andrea, do you want to add anything to that report, comments?
Later on in the meeting, we can talk about.
Want to do it now?
Okay.
Or do you want to do it right into the executive session?
I think.
Okay. Got it. Yep. Why don't we wait? Okay. So, if no other comments on that, I will ask you a question though. I did talk to Dixie Franklin about this for the Robbins Center. They seem to be at full strength. They're fine. Everyone gets in. Thank you again for that. So no child gets turned away. She doesn't need any more programs right now, but I'll use that on the other liaison you have, which is the library. Are there any other programs we can do in the summer? Are there any programs we can do after school that they need help with, that they, with Patrick or someone else, that we can, I'll plant that seed, because it seems as though these kids need to be someplace, if they can't be home, be someplace safe. It seems like this library has become more of a destination to our kids, which I think is absolutely wonderful.
Well, I know they're doing more after-school programs, and I also know, working with the Lansing Youth Services, that is providing teams that actually work in the library and are paid is absolutely fabulous. And most of the money that is used, most of the money for this program comes from the town. So everybody just is extremely happy with that. And they talk of some kids that come in very, very shy, very uncertain about lots of stuff and how much they grow, because they have to interact with patrons in the library. And it's just such a successful program, so I want to thank everybody that's involved with that.
Good. I'll plant the seed. I talked to Frank Towner. He's looking, obviously, the YMCA needs more space. They don't know if they should add on or whatever. And I was brainstorming with him one night and said, what about the Shops of Ithaca? They seem to have some empty rooms. Can we do something along with there, perhaps do programs over there instead? Also town programs, considering that the town of Lansing drops their, Lansing Schools drops their kids off right there at the YMCA, and maybe utilize some of that empty space. That might be the stopgap between that and eventually if a community center is built, whether that be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever, but at least you might be able to utilize some of that space. So those conversations are in. We'll obviously keep you in the loop on that and be part of that discussion, okay? Yeah. Okay. Lansing Youth Services, the report's there.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Okay. And then we come to the county, Tompkins County Legislator, Mike Sigler. Are you in the room?
So Mike, what did you get from Patrick?
I got a bag, a plastic bag, to show his solidarity with me on being against the plastic bag ban. I'm just kidding.
What did you do?
No, I didn't.
They made our plastic bags apparently.
So thank you, Mike, for that report.
We couldn't get the Mike to come on.
I'm not sure what I did.
I think you got your answer, Mike.
That was Governor Cuomo.
Everyone's like talking about the money.
That doesn't happen.
Sorry, I thought I had it all figured out.
It's very,
I don't have it all.
Hey, it's Parks and Rec, not Parks and Rec and ADA.
well, for the record, our IT guy happens to be Patrick also. It's always nice to have an in-house person.
So you gotta get that new content. That's what I was asking.
Can everybody hear us?
I can move back.
Mike, just don't,
Just around the table, Mike.
yeah.
I didn't take my shoe off down the table.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for having me again. I'll try not to do that again. But again, I want to thank Marcia Lynch. She provides me with pretty much all this information that I get for the county. I mean, I know that she writes it up very nicely, and I do pull from her notes liberally. So, building on and building up.
That was the New Year's message from the legislature chairman, Martha Robertson. Martha said that we will be building on the accomplishments of our staff, our relationship with the state and federal governments, and that's important, and I'm going to get to that in a second. And building in a literal sense, we're going to do some renovations to the old jail. We're going to evaluate this Tioga Street site, which is where, I don't know if you remember Baker, orthodontist in town. It's that property right down there in Tioga Street. We're looking at buying that and maybe putting a new building there. Maybe not. We're going to see what we want to do. The city's not terribly happy with us, but we need the land basically, and this is open, has a lot of parking, and we're going to see what we do with it. It's very early stages. Also, we're going to be overseeing the jail and what we do there. We're not going to be adding beds, but we do need some renovations out there. I mean, it's an older building. We need more program space. When we talk about that too, we may move road patrol someplace else, and that would open up more space at the jail. So we're going to see about what we do there, and that study's ongoing. Rich Johns is heading that up, so we'll see what happens with that. So when it gets back to the federal and state governments, while I disagree with Martha on many issues, including the natural gas moratorium, I will say that she has done pretty well by us with the state governments. She seems to have a communication style with them that is effective, which is, I think she pesters them quite a bit. She does seem to have a relationship with them. So when it came time to elect a leader, she knows how to run a meeting, and so we voted for her unanimously. Anna Kellis, I want to thank her for her work as vice chair of the county legislature for the last year. Shauna Black will be vice chair this upcoming session. So it'll be a small change. We'll see what happens with that. She's done a good job running Health and Human Services for the past year. So those are the big changes, I guess, at the county legislature so far. I'm going to be on Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, and the Housing and Economic Development Committee. I'll also be on that. That's a little bit bigger committee than it used to be. It used to be just housing, but now it's going to be like the IDA is going to be under there, which I'm still going to be on too, and economic development and TCAD and everything will be underneath that one umbrella. So that'll be interesting. And I think that's actually good for Lansing. That's something we're going to need. Ed was talking about the options we may have at the mall. Well, I've been in contact with the mall. I've been working. He asked me to reach out to them again. I've reached out to them again. I'm waiting to hear back, but I'll try and get tomorrow and see. Because I've seen them redevelop malls. One mall down in, not that this is something I'm envisioning for our mall, but it shows that people are thinking of different ways to use them. They put a homeless shelter in one of them down in Washington, D.C., right in the center. It's only going to be there for maybe 4 years until they move on with their next plan, but it's 4 years until the homeless shelter is built someplace else, which they already have in the works. So it's interesting to see malls kind of being open to different kind of things. So the natural gas, I mentioned that. When it comes to me personally, what I'm going to be working on, I'd like to obviously see that shaft go in. It's really important to workers and cargo. It's still not up in the air, but it's still in front of the courts. We expect to hear something in the next month about that. It was in Article 78, which is saying that the DEC basically did something wrong. I don't think they did, but I'm not the judge in the case, so we're going to say. Also, natural gas moratorium. I think we might have several different solutions on how to bring more natural gas in that actually will not annoy a lot of people who are against natural gas. This might be a solution that they could accept, so stay tuned for that. It'll be interesting to see if anything can kind of happen with that. Because I just don't want to see us just become a bedroom community of more than 4-unit apartment buildings in Lansing. I mean, we need natural gas to even open a restaurant in this town. And if you don't have that, you're not going to see that kind of development. You're not going to see the jobs come here. So let's see what else. We ratified a new 6-year collective bargaining agreement. This is really important for the county civil service employees, the CSEA, blue collar unit. It's retroactive to last year, January 1st of last year, so that's actually not too bad. You can only be out of contract for a year. And now we have 5 years to not do that, which is always a nice thing for the county. And the raises are reasonable. I mean, 2 to 2.5%. And I thank the blue collar workers too for really working on with our crew to get that done, and they nailed it. So, legislature, we received a status presentation regarding the status of the Department of Transportation Maintenance Facility. The people on Hillcrest Road are very concerned about this, and I'm going to bring that up to you folks because even though it is outside really your purview even, or the planning department's purview, the state has said that they will listen to you. I think even more so than the county, because the county doesn't, obviously, we have a planning department, but we don't have land use authority. You don't really have land use authority in this case either, which you normally do. They've said they are going to listen to what you want. So hopefully, they will listen to the people on Hillcrest Road. I mean, Hillcrest Road, it's pretty busy. It's a big cut-through road. Everybody knows that, I think, if you're going up to the airport, or even going to Portland, or if you're going to ski at Great Peak. They were here today, and I told them all these concerns. The people that are on Hillcrest Road were up and told them their concerns. Some of those folks just want to move entirely. I tried to get that done when they brought it up. I wanted to see other sites. I lost that vote at the county legislature, 10-4. With that said, it's a big site. I think if the state wanted to, they could move it further south, away from the houses on Hillcrest Road. The Cherry Road people are still would still be pretty far away from this site if they just moved it a little bit further south. And there are some other mitigating things that you do to make this not quite so unpleasant for the people there. So hopefully the state, the town will weigh in on that and really keep tabs on them about what they're doing up there. Just because the state doesn't make them all powerful, they do listen. And if they're not listening, that's kind of our concern too. And reach out to me if there's anything I can do. When this first came, I did reach out to Pam Helmy, and she did respond to the people on Hillcrest. There's just not much she could even do. She's a state senator. So it does seem like this is kind of in the DOT's hands, but I think they hopefully will listen to us if we ask for certain changes to the plan. On a lighter note, Melissa Tuckey, she is now the Tompkins County Poet Laureate for this year. And I don't know if you knew this, we actually have a poet laureate. We get one every 2 years. She came in and did some poetry in front of us the other day. The legislature's Health and Human Service Committee, they heard a presentation from the Deputy County Administrator, Lisa Holmes, that regarded the Tompkins County Veteran Service. We are starting this. We already have it in the funding for the budget. It's $100,000 to support this new agency. It's going to be basically somebody that veterans are going to be able to go to, and that person will direct them to whatever they need. If you need a certain service, you need job placement, you need help with your benefits. I mean, I know people that they struggle with Social Security when they have children that are, related to somebody who would serve in the military. They're due certain benefits sometimes, and this person will be able to help them kind of work through that system because it can be complicated. There is a public hearing scheduled on this. It's going to be February 19th, 5:30 p.m. at the legislature chambers. It does take an amendment to the charter to actually make this happen. I already mentioned that we elected Martha Robertson, chair of the legislature. And lastly, we also passed a resolution urging the New York State legislature to increase recycling and reduce municipal waste management costs by expediting the New York State Returnable Container Act, which is also known as the bottle bill. Some bottles aren't even like Gatorade isn't even included. I think that should be wine bottles, liquor bottles. Apparently a lot of people are drinking wine now, so that should be included in there too, I think. This seems like kind of low-hanging fruit for us. And I do expect the governor to kind of expand that act this year, so it'll be something that happens.
Okay. Any questions or comments, concerns you want to share with our legislators? I have a couple. Recycling. You just got a notification that, was it 2s, 4s, and 5s now are only allowed?
Say that again?
Only numbers 2s, 4s, and 5s?
There is a list, they definitely have cut back.
And people actually have had some stuff picked out and left there when they recycle.
Yes.
I think it was, my understanding was because of the Chinese not taking as many recyclables.
Yep. So you can look forward to that for about 18 more months. And the reason it's 18 months is this country we basically shipped most everything to China. China finally said we're not going to take this stuff anymore, so there's no market for it. So we need to separate that stuff out again. You can still get rid of it though, so don't just throw it into the trash.
You have to take it
You have to
down.
take it down. So,
To the recycling center.
and I go by that there lots, so give me a call. Anyway, but yeah, they do take it, you just got to take it down.
A couple more comments.
I'm sorry, if you need the list, it is on their website, Tompkins County Solid Waste. And I'll see if I can find some printed out and bring it out. This is out.
So the full-time director of Veteran Services, can you make, what's the name here? Is there a name on on here yet? Holmes, is it?
Oh, Lisa Holmes, she's the
Holmes.
deputy
Vice
county
Chief Holmes.
commissioner.
Can you make her
We have
aware?
not even started taking applications yet.
Can you make her aware of Milton Meadows across the street?
Sure can, yeah. No, that'll be a good thing. When that comes online, this person will be in place.
And the third thing is that, getting back to the DOT site, I don't know offhand how many acres they need.
So they're developing 15 acres, but the site itself is 15.
Is it, I mean, is it totally 15 that they need?
I believe so.
And I'm kind of wondering if this is a done deal, or is this something that they really are open to suggestions to moving it?
So the land, everything is in place for the land sale. It would be, you would have to take it back to the legislature, and the legislature would have to re-vote on the thing to rescind the sale, and I'm not really sure we can do that, to be honest with you. Really not. I think that the state would have cause.
Would it really have an effect if it was moved?
See, and there's the question, if they would have moved it further south on the site, it's my understanding they would be able to do that from both the people on Hillcrest. But also, if you're looking at, if you literally look at it on the map, you're like, yeah, you could build anywhere, right? I mean, there is a water problem there. There's I don't know if it's really a creek. It looks like a creek on the map, you know, but a lot of things around here look like creeks, and you go there, it's a dry bed, but it's not dry all the time, right? So they do have to kind of negotiate around that. But it's the state of New York. I think we can handle it. I mean, that's the problem. And they're talking about a flight line. Yeah, I fly out of there, so I know what they're talking about. But this thing is not, it's not inside the flight line. I mean, you could push it further south without encroaching in on that. So certainly something I think we as a group could certainly push for to mitigate the problem there for these folks on Hillcrest. Because it's only 4 houses that we're talking about here, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, having the conversation tonight, I mean, with my call, they're willing to take the fuel storage.
The airport is.
Yes.
So right there, that would actually feel more of the site.
I mean, in a very small way, we do that with the highway department. We are the fuel supplier for the buses and for the fire stations.
Right, and we want to do the same thing in the county. We want to be able to supply both in the airport. The problem, not the problem at the airport, you have a fence line and everything. Inside the fence, you have to be cleared to go in. You've got to get a special badge to walk around the airport office. So everything on the one side of the fence is secure, and that would serve the airport then. But you could make it so you could fuel up stuff on the other side of the fence. So that would help our sheriff's department and our road crews, and the state can tie into that. So
yeah, I'm personally not convinced that this is the only place they can do this, and I'm personally not convinced that they can't nudge this over a little bit if this thing.
It would resolve a lot of headaches for everybody involved like that. I really don't.
Well, you know, it's easy for me because I'm not involved with it, but
right.
you have Mr. Scanlon out here who's, you know, I mean, and I'm going to bring him into this conversation just for a minute, if I may. I mean, is there wiggle room on this as far as this goes to have them stay there that you would feel comfortable with, or is it just that they?
It's the smallest mitigation you can imagine.
Can you speak louder?
Yeah, it's an incredibly small mitigation to move it a couple hundred feet. I mean, the problem is the whole process by which the county sold this land in the first place. The FAA kind of dictated it, the county's getting this benefit, the Department of Transportation's in on it from the grant from the state, and we were not consulted. So the actual parcel of land being freed up from the FAA regulations, there's so many options of where this could be in this county, and the fact that it's put on top of our houses is the first problem. So moving it slightly is just kind of a go away nod to us as neighbors, and obviously does nothing for us.
Okay.
However, if that's the only thing that can happen in this situation, then yes, the Kennedy Smiths, our friends and neighbors across the street, the property literally surrounds their historic home. It's unbelievable when you look at the drawings about this. And it's just downright insulting. Mike Hall's comments about how excited he is for the development of the county. This is being borne by the 4 of us in our homeowner properties.
So trying to make a terrible situation a little bit better, if I may, And this doesn't go in a site plan, which I've checked with Lynn Day, so the planning board really doesn't have a lot of teeth into this.
Yeah, we were here Monday, but.
Yeah, it's been a bad week for you, sorry. But having said that, one thing we can do is reach out to the DOT and say, look at it. I mean, we had one developer put in 60 pine trees. You know, if you have to buffer the living daylights out of this thing, raise the berms up so that they're higher, do something, maybe move it a little bit more to mitigate that noise, do something to show that you care about the neighbors next year. It's not the best case scenario, but we're trying to make as much lemonade as we can out of this, you know what I'm saying? And it just, I understand that a lot of times we sit there and here we go. So we're trying to be your advocates as best we can on this, and just to get more input from you as far as, I guess, what is doable.
Yeah, well, as far as the local mitigating things that can happen, you really want to talk to Maura and Bill Kenny Smith. They're the ones literally on top of them. We are across the street now. I own 2 of the properties on this side of the street. We'll be able to see it from our home as well, the north end of this development. I can tell you that, you know, one of the reasons we moved to Lansing is that it's nice and peaceful. It sounds funny because we live under the airport. We knew that as an existing thing when we moved there and built our house there. We're a little aware of the airport, and I like the airport. However, we can hear the machinery on top of the Borg Warner plant from our homes. And for them to say that there's going to be no sound impact on us with these trucks, I don't think the trucks are silent. I don't know that for sure. I'm not a professional at this, but I can tell you that the environmental assessment is a joke. It was bought and paid for to clear this through without any resistance.
Okay, well, you give me some good guidance, so I appreciate that.
Well, I guess the question I have on this issue is, who would have to approve the movement? Would it be just the county, or would it go all the way to the FAA, having to say, well, if you're moving it over 100 feet, it's a new project, and we have to go through this process over again?
That county has no, so we don't even have planning. I mean, we have.
Well, it's your property, and you haven't finalized the sale, so you could, if everybody agreed, amend the sale to a different space.
We kind of tried to do that before the vote, but
It sounds like we're talking to the wrong county legislator, because you weren't in favor of this. You probably should talk to the 10 who voted yes for it.
well, there's that. I mean, yeah, we can do that too. No, I mean, you're right. I'm just.
I mean, because you didn't want this in the first place.
Right. But there's no, I mean, can you put conditions on a sale that was already voted on? I don't know. You know, I'm not sure you can. It would be like the Travis High Library property if we were to have gone back and said, well, no, now you're changing what you're going to do with the land. We didn't put that condition in the agreement.
No, but if DOT came to you and said, can we switch the property over? I assume the board would be open to that. But I think it would take FAA at this point as well, saying, yes, that new site.
Well, right, the FAA's concern is the flight line.
Right.
So that's their big concern. I don't even think this is the best site for it. I mean, I repeatedly said that, but I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
It's not going to get moved somewhere else from what I can see.
Well, right, that's kind of where I was at, you know, for the past while.
Well, let me ask Guy a question. What kind of pressure do we have based on approving the sewer district? Can we say no to the state? Under what grounds can we say no to the state?
Well, we could decide not to extend the sewer, and their answer was they'll put in septic. At least at one meeting I was at, is that they have enough land to put in a septic system. It's not an ideal solution, but they could do it because they have 15 acres. And they don't have a large volume of water to deal with. Yeah, I mean, you could say no to the water too, and they could put in a well. I mean, whether or not that would be enough to be motivation to relocate, I couldn't say. But yeah, it is. There's no mandate that the town provide water and sewer. In fact, it's not even within the authority of a town to provide water and sewer to its citizens. It's only the districts that can do it. So you could try to cross that bridge, whether as a point of factor, a point of leverage, and see if you get anywhere with it. But if they just retool and go to a septic, then what?
Well, the other thing is we are an involved agency because we do have the sewer.
Pardon me?
Depends on who you ask.
Well, it's in their book,
Okay, good.
because we have the sewer discussion. It's in the EIS that they put out. So we can make comments, and our comments have some standing as an involved agency. Do we want to draft up some comments?
You certainly can. That was one of the things when I read that, when I saw that they were doing a NEPA and they said it was joint, NEPA and seeker, and I knew we were an involved agency, I was wondering who got the notice.
I think it said it was sent to Ed.
I'm not aware of it.
As I remember, their document said they sent it out to these people and you were on the list. I'm not saying you got it, I'm saying that's what they claimed in their document. So we could put in comments, they have to be in by February 2nd, I believe is the due date.
I think that would be helpful.
So let's start the emails going back and forth.
Okay, do we want as a board to authorize Ed or Ed and someone else to make comments for the board? Or do we have to have a board meeting between now and February 2nd to approve comments going to,
I think what you can do, you know, I'll let Guy tell me if I'm wrong, is to have all the board members weigh in with their comments on this, to see what their comments are, give them the opportunity to do that.
I'm just asking Guy for procedure.
Well, first you're asking me, and I'm commenting on it, which is...
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing your proposal.
Yes, is that, okay, to have these, here are the comments from the board, and you either list the comments from each individual board member saying this, and this, here we are, these are the comments from the board members. And it's almost like having another public hearing, but you're having it with the board members saying, these are my concerns, my concerns, my concerns, type of thing, and send them to the DOT. Otherwise, you're going to do a resolution, emergency meeting, this is what we propose. I think probably that's the best way to start that conversation again, to say, look at where are we with this, and this. And like I said, you know, Michael's doing the best he can, but he was one of 4.
No, I understand. I just know that we as a board have got a different kind of concern than we as individual people, because we're an involved agency as the board. And so I want to leverage that extra say that we have over everybody else in the room.
All right, let's do a parallel universe here, okay? There was no site plan review. There was no recommendations from the planning board. This is almost like doing a parallel universe where we are now, the planning board, saying this is what we need for a site plan. If you can't, first of all, we propose that you find a different site. If that is out of the question, realistically, because it may be already done, okay, I'm a realist here, what can we do to mitigate the impact? And it's the same thing in a very smaller scale when someone comes to own this and this, and it's allowed, okay, in that zone, what you have with site plan approval. You see it all the time with schedules. So where's your buffer, where's your lighting, where's your noise mitigation, all the other things they have to address. I would form it into a letter saying, these are the concerns we have as a town board, these mitigations. And maybe you get something nudged that you didn't before, because now we're talking as a town board saying, okay, if this is going to go through anyways, because I don't see it at the county, I don't see 5 people changing the vote on this. To be realistic about it, what can we do to mitigate the impact for the residents?
I'm fine with all this. My question for Guy is, can we speak as a town board without having a meeting saying, this is what the town board says?
Well, you're at a meeting.
Right.
So,
well, we don't have our list of comments. We have to work that out.
yeah, but frequently you have, that comes up a lot. And certainly you're an agency, so that is implying that you're you have a particular interest that's above and beyond other listed involved parties. Members of the public don't have standing generally as agencies. So the voice that's used should be that of the town board. I certainly would encourage that somebody get input from the planning board. And if you wanted to submit something formal as an interested or an involved agency, I would suggest that you just authorize somebody to draft something and then release it in the name of the town once it's approved by the rest of the board. It's sort of like when you do a contract or you approve something and you say, the contract with so-and-so be and hereby is approved, and the supervisor's authorized to sign it when it's in a final form that's acceptable to him or to the town council or to someone.
Okay.
So I think he just authorized someone to do the drafting, contact everyone, make sure everyone's comfortable with the tone and the language. And if it's representative of what the position of the board is as an agency, as long as that person's authorized to send it, let's say here tonight, then you could go. Otherwise, you could always have an emergency meeting to review it or something like that if you wanted to send it out. But if it's a response of an involved agency, it should be a response of the town of Lansing.
So let's propose, this, under brainstorming here, the 28th is when the planning board meets again.
Right.
Can you send out emails now, getting some input from the planning board members so you can have a thorough discussion on this at your planning board meeting on the 28th to get their input?
Sure.
Okay?
From the town board.
Pardon me?
Input to forward with the town board.
And what I would like to do is maybe have Guy be that person that we designate to assimilate all this information. As a town board, as a planning board, we're concerned about this. As a town board, we're concerned about this. Now you got two boards for the Lansing saying we're concerned about this. This isn't all go ahead and put whatever you want. And at the end of the day, you start that conversation now, because if we're not willing participants, things drag on. Things drag on. And maybe we don't approve the sewer right away because it's not on the agenda. They drag on. Things happen. I'm not suggesting that. I'm simply saying that if we're not comfortable with the way things are, we don't have to be a willing participant just to say, oh, well, we can have conversations on that. And I'm sure the Village of Lansing will probably have a conversation about that too, so with the Village of Two Heights, because they haven't reached out to them either. And I recommend they do that. They haven't done it yet. And they're not very happy.
But they didn't even acknowledge the Village of Lansing was part of the decision-making process.
And that may have been a typo or not, but I understand. But that's always been directed to them that they should have done it first. So having said that, if the planning board can get their consensus together, and if the town board can get their consensus together, and then we send it on by the February 2nd, at least we have something in writing that we're not happy the way things are. And we like them to take serious consideration to the residents.
I think that it ought to come under your signature as the supervisor.
I have no problem with that.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that the supervisor be authorized to, with consent from the town board and the planning board, send a list of concerns as our official comments to the DOT as part of this environmental review. And that will be done after the planning board's meeting, so they have a chance to weigh in. And if you want Guy to help you write that, that's fine. But I want to authorize, I want to do it, I want it to come from the town board, not from the planning board and the town board. We say, this is comments we got, but I want all those to come under our umbrella, because it's the town board that's the decision-making thing, and I don't want to, lessen the planning board's comments by saying, no, this is a different agency.
I think on the contrary, your comments are exponential because you have from two different groups. You have two different groups saying that we as a planning board are concerned about this, we as a town board are concerned about this. So you have a pretty strong voice that you have. The only thing left is the CBA, but that's not in their purview. To say, look, we have concerns about this. And one of the concerns are we're treating this like a site plan review. And
well, I want to get the planning board's viewpoint on this. I just think it has to come from the town board as a totality.
I have no problem with that.
To have the strongest effect.
I have no problem with that.
The only reason I suggested is consulting the planning board is that you're really dealing with impact mitigation issues, and that really is what they do.
Yes.
They will bring perhaps insights to the table, as they often do, that others wouldn't necessarily think of.
And the neighbors can give us insights too.
Mm-hmm.
If the neighbors can send us, I know they've had their public comments here, and I don't want to dredge through uncomfortable issues again, but they can send them to Michael or somebody, get the conversation started. At least what are their real concerns here, and what's the realistic goals that we can have here. And if you can get hold of Jerry and make sure he's aware of this, he's the new chair of the planning board, we'll at least share the information that, we're not happy. with this. And hopefully something positive can come of it.
Did the state have any say? I mean, we have to, as a planning board, we have to notify people within such a distance of the property. Is the state say, well, we don't have to, we're the state?
Well, we had this conversation about who's being notified, and as my understanding, it was up to the DOT to do all the notification because it was their public information session.
But we don't know whether they did or didn't.
Well, we also tried to put it on the web. We also tried to do other stuff along those lines to at least, but it's, the unfortunate thing is that, and to the people's credit, who said, look, this is the first I've heard of it. Here we are, ready to sign a document. It's a little bit shocking.
Well, I guess the process, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the process could have been followed via the state, but why would they be different than?
I mean, Mr. Scanlon, what was your reaction when you went to the county the other day and voiced your concern?
To the first question, Mr. Jackass, we were notified of this hearing earlier today from the FAA. They gave a formal letter. We were never notified by the county about the initial discussion about this.
Or the DOT.
Or the DOT. And Mike Sigler found out, I think you said, Mike, when you opened your agenda package the day before the meeting, he sent me an email and I sent it to our neighbors, and that's how we found out. There was no notification from the county.
So it just sounded to me that towns have to go through this process of notification, and yet states or the state, or I know the county, not the county, but don't have to go through this process.
Well,
They may or may not, I don't know.
They got a notification of the public hearing, but at that point, the thing's been pretty much designed.
Well, they got, you know, things are designed way ahead of that anyway, but the point is where's the process at the state law? I don't know if it's there or not, I guess is my question.
Well, there's a weird process, because Ed and I went up to a meeting at the airport where they showed us designs, they passed out drawings, and here's our sketch plans, and then they demanded that we all give them back. We couldn't even take copies home with us to look at and share with our neighbors and say, this is what they're thinking. And that's a really weird process. I mean, they could have stamped draft over it. I mean, I understand these were really conceptual.
Wouldn't it have been nice, and I hate to use hypotheticals because I'm a realist, but would it have been nice if we had that conversation before they even proposed buying a piece of land?
Or before the county even accepted. I mean, it's still in the town.
Yes.
So,
But what we can do now is we can authorize Ed to write a series of concerns in response to this environmental review as the town's official response, and that we will weigh in as town board members. We'll ask the planning board to weigh in on that and help you with the drafting of it.
Okay, we have an action plan. We can close that, I think, for right now.
Do we have to vote on this?
Yes.
You did make a motion,
Oh, you did.
so it would need to be seconded
I'll second.
to authorize
I'd
that.
like to know what that motion was, because there was, that went on for about 15
Well, it's
minutes.
still flat in the air here, I understand.
Ed would, go ahead.
Ed would write a response to the proposed environmental review of the proposed DOT facility for the town. And that will be with the advice of the town board and the planning board.
With the input.
Input. Okay.
Okay.
Anything for Thursday? Go ahead. She seconded it. Any further discussion?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Send us your stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You had a very productive moment there, my friend. Thank you. Hopefully they'll keep going. Patrick, what's your rec?
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, hi. Patrick is 39 years, wonderfully 39 years old. He's 39. We had the conversation this morning, didn't we? Yes, it's wonderful to be 39 because you bounce back so fast. And I guess you tested this week, really, weren't you? Okay, my friend, go ahead.
I'm just going to touch on, we started our online reservations and some of our registrations on Monday. So far, it's going pretty well. There are a few quirks that we have to work out, but it's, it's kind of a work in progress. And hopefully this will allow us to communicate with the public better. We'll be able to send mass text messages and mass emails out to anyone who creates a profile. So I think it's going to be a huge plus for our department. Does anybody have any questions? I know it's past Mike's bedtime, so he wants to go.
It makes me just want to go on there and sign up for something.
Well, that's what, yeah.
Test runs?
So I probably will send through the school a mass email out so people can create the profile and log in, and so we can capture them and have their information. That way we can get them the information, so.
What is hot stove baseball?
Hot Stove Baseball is basically, it's a baseball clinic. It's a fancy word for.
Well, why do they call it hot stove? Because it's inside?
No, that's an old term.
It's an old,
Baseball has its own language.
Yeah, baseball.
It's its own
That's the
language.
best way to put
I
it.
guess I'm not that old, I guess. I don't know.
They get a Chinese massage after the game.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you for all you do. It's a wonderful program. I love seeing it going on.
Me too. All right.
Keep your energy up.
Huh?
Keep your energy
Yeah,
up.
I'm afraid Mike's gonna ask me to plus 12 this weekend.
That's what I hear.
Cricket, I'm impressed you lost a little weight.
Yeah, working out.
You know,
Look younger.
Well, Cricket's under the weather, so I'm here filling in for him. Good evening,
Literally?
everybody. What's that?
Literally?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, 2 days. He's been,
Wow.
got a head cold. I was able to go to the doctor yesterday, so hopefully he's done the mend.
What you got?
So, we've been busy, obviously, going through our equipment, preparing for the upcoming snow event. We've been brushing up on county line between Genoa and Lansing. Cricket and I have been going through and doing a preliminary road evaluation of our roads, what we'd like to improve on. I think he got with you and put together a list, obviously, of the major improvements we're going to do, but obviously snow and oiling. Obviously, with the freeze-thaw cycle in the spring, things could change, but right now that's what we're gearing towards. Milling and filling in certain areas. Bean Hill development is a big one for us. We're excited about that. In the 16 years I've been at the highway department, we haven't done anything in that department, and it's time. Other than that, that's about it.
Any questions?
Have fun this weekend.
Yes. And we'll be,
Well, actually, we'll just blow
if we're lucky, right?
No, they would just dump, so they have to go out in the middle of the night and do a bunch of work that'll burn off the next day.
That's where Pat comes in. I worked on ideas for today, so thankful. We have a thank you to you for the extra help we have, and it's really going to pay off.
We
Absolutely.
always have to have people who deserve to bring them in, so not those B license, that's what they're called, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm learning. Yes, so anyways, and it's good practice for all our new guys, right?
Absolutely.
Ever you tempted?
Well, as with you, you have ridden before, and I was instructed don't touch any buttons when I rode, because back then they don't have wingmen, they have hydraulics, and you look out the side, they drop the wing and everything, which I thought was amazing.
Yes.
And that took away one of the wingmen by doing that, and I went with Spanky.
Oh, yeah.
And it was,
I bet you got a good education.
I can't, there's certain things I can't repeat here, but no, it was good. And it just amazes me that these big men have such a delicate touch with these machines. Same thing with excavators and backhoes. They just have this touch that they can move stuff, and it's this huge machine that can do it, and you can just use, like I said, once again, compliment you on the water lines. You guys you were the conductor, and they were just in sync. It was amazing.
Thank you.
When one guy was sick, the other guy jumped up and he just drove both trucks, one right after
Yes.
the other. And it just, like I said, just kept moving.
The crew did an outstanding job, without a doubt. Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Mike. We got a bunch of mics tonight.
All right, well, you have my report. I'll just kind of go through some of the items.
lighting, Ed, Guy and I had a very productive meeting this week with the village of Lansing, the village of Cuba Heights, and trying to renegotiate the sewer agreements and putting all three of the separate agreements into one bundle. I think it's going to pay huge dividends going forward. I know Ed and Cricket have been working very diligently on trying to define the sewer units and capacity issues, and I think we're making good progress, especially as we blend into school district number 1. So, guys, revising the language tight and put it all together, and then hopefully the legal people will do it. With any luck in February or March, we'll bring that to the town board for their final adoption. We're still working on the LED street lighting with the New York Power Authority. We're still working, Patrick has given me some input on the bus option across the street, or excuse me, at the town hall here for TCAT. And I've shared a little bit with Joe, and hopefully we'll get some additional input from Craig when he's back on board again. The, let's see, Myers Park, if you go down at the bottom, I know Pat and Katrina have been working on putting together some sketches on new plant materials. So the county's coming out with another grant application for that particular program. As you know, we've gotten, I think, 3 of them so far through the county, which has been good. There's a workshop that's coming up at the end of the month, so I plan on attending that as well. We've got the, Pat, as you know, we've got $5,000 from NYSERDA in terms of a grant, so he's looking at doing a lighting program for Myers Park with LED lights. So he's getting prices back for that, so hopefully we'll be able to bring that back to you at some point in the not too distant future. But I will mention that I was invited to a meeting that NYSEG had on the non-pipes alternative for natural gas, and they're looking at submitting different proposals. So I was able to give them some input on some of the things, and they've asked me to update our current demands as to what we've already been approved in terms of the planning board and things of that nature. We gave them a list last year of over 1,000 units that had been approved over the last couple of years. So hopefully they can plan that into their analysis as they look at where the needs are for electricity and gas and things of that nature as they build out. So on the terms of the planning board side of things, Finger Lakes Marina was approved at the meeting earlier this week on Monday. The land use ordinance, they had another workshop at 5 o'clock. This last Monday as well. I will mention also that the Ag Committee had a meeting on January 7th, and they gave us input on the first 2 columns for the new Ag zone as well as the RA zone. So the Ag Committee went through it in detail. Lynn Davidson, who's a member of both the Planning Board and the Ag Committee, was instrumental in helping going through that process. So I think we've made a lot of progress. The last committee meeting, we ended up going through about half of the chart. So on the 28th is the next planning board meeting, so they've agreed to meet again at 5 o'clock and try to continue that through the matrix of Schedule 1. So, and then next camp, again, we went through a process where the planning board has determined that they will be lead agency. We sent out the coordinated review letters yesterday, and so hopefully in February we'll have that back. They're updating their agricultural reclamation plan. Some of the addition of information we've asked them for is the depth of the electrical lines. Again, they want to do it at 24 inches. And I know this is something guys harped on a couple times is Ag and Markets wants 48 inches. They've been corresponding with them directly, so hopefully we'll get some input back from them as to what they're required to do and what they would like to do and what we want them to do. Lynn Davidson has also been very involved with the depth of some of the subsurface drainage and things you don't want to go do because you're going to screw up all of the drainage system in the fields. So. Smika is a proposed bed and breakfast and an event center in a potentially restored historic barn, Judge Howell's old property. So they had a sketch plan review on Monday night, so they've got a list of things to add to their particular project. And I think that overall the planning board was very receptive. And I will mention, I don't think Connie's here tonight, but the Ag Committee has decided that they will meet in January, February, March, their traditional meet time of the first Monday of the month, take off the summer, and then regain again in October, November, December. So that's what we put together in terms of the schedule of meetings, and we'll make sure that they're posted on the website for the thank you. But they've been giving us some valuable insight into the future zoning map as we're looking at the RA agricultural zone. So, if you have any other questions.
So Michael, I'm looking at February 4th and March 4th, is that we're doing at 9 a.m. at Linda's?
Yes.
And do you think we can get enough done at that time to put to bed the ag recommendations for the zoning and everything?
I think we're pretty much there for the ag committee.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
So the marina plans have finally been approved?
Yes.
That was a long process.
I can't remember how many meetings, if it was 7 or 6 or 7 or 8.
It was a lot. It
Yeah,
was a
there
lot.
were several meetings, and again, I think trying to take all the considerations of the neighbors and the Army Corps of Engineers and DEC and trying to coordinate all of that. Fire chief got some input into it as well, and he was happy with things. So I think it was a good overall solution. And I will say again, for the record, that John Anderson, as the engineer for the project, helped immensely because he was also doing the water system and the septic systems. And as a former head of the health department, he understands the regulations that were involved there. So we wanted to get this done before he retired, which I think we just squeezed it in.
Okay.
Is there a new build with the project, like a big building?
There's a couple buildings. There's an arched steel frame fabric building that will be a maintenance shop that he'll work on. He's got another shed that's over towards the east side property, which will be a storage building. It'll be enclosed on 3 sides. He's got a small addition next to the house, number 26, that's going to be a multi-purpose facility where his mother will be living. It's connected into the house.
Is that where the pony pen
Was, yes. I don't think the pony's coming back. I don't know, again, it may change.
Maybe we see horses.
Okay, thank you.
He's got a long list of stuff that he can build, and he's got 3 years to substantially start these things. And if he doesn't, he has to go through the process of continue and other things on the list.
He has conditions like up to N or L or N, doesn't he? He has like that many conditions in there?
Yeah, I got added an extra page of it. But in terms of new buildings, probably the one thing that he proposed was to build 4 cabins that would be used seasonally but would be permanent structures. So he's got approval for 4 of them without sewer and kitchens and bathrooms. But he is requesting the authority to go to the health department and get 6 RV sites that would be in addition to. So he's okay in terms of the septic system for now, for the 4 cabins that were approved as part of the plan. But phase 2 is if he goes and gets approval from the health department.
And the cabins are to the east of the existing building or to the other side?
Well, kind of more smack dab in the middle. They're to the left of the main building.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know, there was a trailer that was parked there this last summer. Somebody lived in an RV,
Okay.
so it's basically that spot going to the east.
There's 2 pages of maps describing every little detail.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it yet.
If you
I'll
like,
let you move on.
I'll show you the maps in detail if you'd like to see it.
Okay, thank you, Michael. The engineer's report is not available. Michael, using a segue, Guy, have you heard anything about any of the water issues? The ag committee report, I think Michael alluded to a lot that was necessary there. And we'll move on to agenda item number 17. Resolution authorizing acceptance of bid, issuance of notice of award and contract to Yuga Commercial Cleaning, Yuga Commercial Cleaning for Town Hall and Community Building Custodial Services. Patrick has promised we'll do this in October next year.
Or August.
Or August. It's a learning process, having gone outside as a normal employee to do this. So,
I'll move that.
okay, I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any comments?
I just want to get a chance to read this over and see what's back there.
This one actually came in, Patrick, under $301 less than last year?
Yes.
Is that what it was, something like that?
Yeah.
So what did we get? Did we get the same company? Did we get multiple bids?
That was the only one that actually placed a bid.
Okay, so we got 1 bid. It came in less than last year.
When does that happen?
Competition. Never.
He actually wrote on it that it was taking him less time to clean
Than he thought.
than he
Yeah, so the price was less. And I don't know, I haven't heard anything negative about this. They come in they usually come in around 5 o'clock, 5:30 when no one's around, they zip right through, they're very thorough.
Just very flexible. I have had to change their schedule, obviously, because the new judge does court at night, so we had to switch to the Tuesday schedule. They're more than flexible, willing to change the schedule, so it's been great.
Okay.
Okay.
If nothing further, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Date.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Item 18, in your packet, resolution approving highway department purchase of replacement equipment.
I'll make that.
And I have a motion, is there a second?
Sure.
I have a second, any further discussion? If not, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Date.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Agenda item number 19, resolution divesting remaining rights of enforcement or interest in equitable restrictions at 104 Auburn Road.
Can you tell me about this?
Guy, you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. Back many, many years ago, the property which the Scoops is located on was sold by the town, and there were a couple of restrictions placed on it. And they said no more than 30 cars a day and another type of, and no outdoor storage, I think were the two restrictions. They've never been enforced. The town doesn't hold any interest in title, and the deed specifically says violation of covenants will not result in divestiture of title or of the penalty. And obviously that is part of the town center, and they're proposing to sell it to, I think, the Salt Point Brewing, and they wanted the restrictions lifted on the thought that they were title covenants. Legally, they're probably not title covenants, they're equitable covenants. In other words, they're only enforceable by the current landowner as against the subsequent purchaser. So the town doesn't really have any remaining interest in that. And there doesn't seem to be any reason to understand why we would put that restriction on property that's commercial on a state highway in the first place. But the buyer is saying, look, for the avoidance of doubt, would you please just, I know it's an equitable restriction, you technically aren't abandoning anything because you don't have a title interest, but to unify title and make sure we can get title insurance, would you please sign off on the deed? And cleaning up, yeah, that would be a good way to put it. And I thought that was the right solution. There's been, you know, it was actually my idea. The buyer's attorney agreed. The seller's attorney wasn't sure, but you're just cleaning up the title and making sure that the restrictions go away. The town has never enforced them. There's actually a statute, Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law, Section 1851, that says that if they're minor restrictions and they don't, quote unquote, touch and concern the land, which these do not in the legal sense of that phrase, they're not enforceable anyway. So we're really not giving anything up, but we're doing it all by the book and by the numbers, just to make sure that there's no doubt 10 years from now as to what the title rights of the owners are.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? We have a motion and a second.
We don't.
Are we voting?
And this one, I never heard anybody say the motion or the second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
We discussed it before we made the
We
motion.
discussed it.
Well, no, he asked a question, and now we're going to open it up to, is there any further discussion? If not, Mrs. Munson?
Procedure.
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Date.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Number 20, resolution creating the Town of Lansing Conservation Advisory Committee.
I will move that.
I'll second. Okay,
Aye.
that's okay.
There's a fight.
That's okay. I love this enthusiasm, especially at 8:10, so you second.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? The only question I have here, it's not, I guess it's a question, is how many members do you think will be on this board, and will they be of equal groupings? As far as that goes, I mean, you want to have from different areas, right? Is that recall on this?
Yeah, you want to have somewhere between 6 and 10 people. You don't want to have a huge group where you can't get anything done, but you want to have enough that you can have some diversity.
They have 5 to 7 members, each member a town resident, and they have different categories. Looks like you have 5 categories.
Yes, preferences.
Okay. Is that right, Bruce?
No, yeah, the idea is try to people with different perspectives and knowledge at the time.
Okay, good. That's all I have. Anyone else? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson. Yes. Katrina Bickowitz.
Yes.
Doug Tate.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Now we're on to item number 21, which is resolution hiring part-time seasonal employee for Parks and Recreation for the town of Lansing.
I'll move that.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
You don't really need them.
So this, just for the record, this guy also has a Class B license.
I was
right?
going to ask.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well,
In all fairness, he's an intern.
yeah, he's an intern. He's doing this for his college also.
Great.
But having said that, he's worked in the summer, obviously in the parks, and as Patrick, we try to encourage getting as multiple licenses as possible. So anyways, that's where we are. And that takes, he's a new Patrick, Patrick is a new Steve, and we're the same old. Okay? All right. Anything else on your end? Something. Okay.
He didn't have a B list.
Look at the time.
Not 11, 10 now.
Exactly. Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bickowitz.
Yes.
Doug Tate.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. All right, item agenda number 22, resolution restating, reapproving front-end loader lease.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
Why were we stated?
Yeah, why are we redoing
Guy?
You didn't read your email this afternoon.
No.
Well, the short-
We had this conversation going back and forth about a week ago.
The short answer is that the leasing company has a form of resolution that they want that dovetails with all of their paperwork. And we had already gone through the process and approved it and said it has to have an executory clause in it. And it turns out, because this leasing agency is in fact a government agency, it already has 2 executory clauses that work under New York law, and they want their form. So we were faced with the choice of A, going back to them and getting them to agree to accept our existing resolution and adding a clause that's not needed to the contract, or B, make it really simple and just reapprove something we've already approved using the form they like. So I thought it was more efficient to just...
No, I did read it.
So they're not getting 2 loaders.
No, it's the same order.
Not yet.
Same everything.
Well, if you get in it again, you'll break it, so we
So it's just expedient, cheaper, faster to just reapprove it using, it doesn't validate the old form, it just says, all right, we'll use your form.
Okay.
Same resolution, different language.
You're doing the exact same thing, right? But it now, all the references meet their contracts and everything lines up a little. It makes them happy and it doesn't hurt us, so it's a lot easier than getting approval.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? We have a motion and a second. If not, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bickowitz.
Yes.
Doug Tate.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Item number 23, approved audit and budget modifications.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Bickowitz.
Yes.
Doug Tate.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Now we're on to board member reports. Joe?
Went to the ag meeting, that's already been reported. I'm working with Patrick on looking at website reviews. We're discussing that possibilities, looking for some grant money as well. I would like to talk about cameras, which is another topic that we were discussing. Cameras for filming board meetings and having them possibly available as live stream online. I've noticed that when we post them on the website, we get a lot of hits on it. People are actually looking at this. I think the numbers were, I was saying, like 40 or 50 people will come on later on and watch the meeting, which is a lot more than come here. And I'm wondering, you know, what the board's interested is in setting up some permanent cameras so that we can possibly even live stream this so people can sit at home and watch us and be able to see what's going on more and be able to watch planning board meetings and just make it more like a flip of the switch to set things up and get them going.
Okay. Do you have a budget?
Kicking around the idea of like 10 or 15,000 to get a setup. I think that was kind of the ballpark.
If you want to go top end, yes.
Well, I don't know if people can see what they're looking at.
There is a vast range, so, I mean, you can spend as little as 1,000, or you can spend 50. It just depends on what the board wants.
One of the things is that Chris Williams left a component, a suggestion at one time for about $1,000, I think, for that. And, I mean, obviously this is, I'm fine with this. I mean, it doesn't matter, it's already, hello, it's already there, right? So, but having said that, I like to do baby steps on this and see where it goes, and if it isn't what we want, we can justify a higher price on something, and get some more research on this, and have a serious discussion on what Chris recommended, because I don't think it'd take much to set that up. But once again, for $1,000, at least we get a prototype, a discussion on that, and then see if that's where we want to go or not. But that way, you have it for the planning board, the ZBA, you have it for whatever public meetings you want.
I would also like to add in, if we're going to start doing some upgrades, which really need to be done around here, upgrade your microphone system as well.
Yes.
Okay, I'll discuss all that later, but once again, I'm a numbers guy, which is, I work at a number, find out what the numbers are that you need, and this is the reason why. Obviously, you may have to do a 3-bid process, or something else process, but you know, let's get an action plan together of what you want to accomplish, and see if these things can be accomplished in that budget or not. This thing, getting back to the website here, I mean, and I don't want to do just a copycat, but the one at the village, for instance, seems to be pretty straightforward. Village of Lansing, where here it is. And if I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. I mean, I mean, before it was like the monkey trying to get the banana. You just keep pushing buttons until, but this one seems to be crystal clear. And I don't know if that might be something to consider also.
I think we're looking at stuff like that, and Pat and I were talking about getting a number of bids, including one from our local, yeah.
That guy in the
That guy right there.
Yeah.
Dan, getting one from Dan to say, all right, we're looking at a substantial upgrade. We're looking at ones that will let us do more and be easier for the public and us to interface with. And I just want to get some of the board feeling on what that's like. Again, we're talking about $10,000, $15,000, and they would come in and do the whole switch over. So it wouldn't be us saying, all right, can we get this thing moved over, can we get that moved on? There would be a process in which they would come in, and one day it would turn on, and would have all our current back stuff and have all the new abilities. It would be similar to the village, if not that specific style.
All right, let me just take us one step further. Would the board entertain security cameras for the front? Do you entertain that also, or is that feasible? To do something along those lines also? Now that it's not a threat or anything, but I don't know if they have them in other facilities or not.
Sounds like we should do the handicap door first.
That's exactly what came into my mind.
I'd be more into the handicap door.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
Has there been an issue in which security cameras?
I'm just, since we got the open discussion here, we're just throwing it all out here. And I'll address all these situations when it's my turn. but I just want to find out what's on the table, what the concerns are of the board, and how we make it a reality.
I just want to make the board aware, if there is some sort of website change over there, it's not going to be, it will be labor intensive for someone within the town, because you're going to have to review it and make sure it's what you want.
Gee,
I mean,
who's that?
I can attest to this from just transitioning to our software in our office. It takes a lot of time, and we're still changing things, even as we're in the process.
Yeah.
Well, I think that Patrick is talking about a content and format review, which would have to be somebody in the town, not me. But I also want to say, I mean, the system that the website is based on is actually pretty robust. So if we stay in that system, it wouldn't be an issue. But I do want to say that when I switched to it from Lyle's system, which was just a bunch of drop-down,
Right.
as you recall, it was a huge amount of work, even more than I expected, because I didn't really realize the volume of stuff that was already there. And so, again, whether it's me at my hourly rate or somebody in-house or somebody out-house or whatever, depending on what Patrick and Joe have in mind for the backbone, the back end, it could be more, it could be less. I mean, as far as redesigning on the current backbone is concerned, that's not a problem. This backbone was designed for that. So if I were to be asked, which I haven't been, I would recommend keeping that and starting with a list of the things that you want to do that we're not doing, and with perhaps a design sketch, and then seeing whether this platform is still appropriate for those purposes.
Okay.
I suspect it would be. And then figure out what it would take to make that happen.
Okay.
So plan of attack.
Well, it's all good information. Okay. Anything else, Joe?
Okay. We've been working really hard at the library on our budget and our finances, and we're going to talk about an executive session that pertains to the librarian, has to do with that. I am the liaison to Cuba Medical. And believe it or not, I've talked to Dr. Marty Stallone, who's the new CEO. We should be very proud since he lives in Lansing, local guy. Very good. And he keeps on saying they're going to have a meeting, and we haven't had one. But I'm going to push him on it because I think it's important that the people in the county be part of, or at least they hear us, because it is our hospital. For all that we sort of dump on it, it is our local hospital, and you have an emergency, and if it's time related, like it was for me in September, if I went to any other hospital, I wouldn't have made it.
To the Rucker Hospital or to the?
Only to Cuba Medical. If I had to go to Syracuse or Rochester.
Across the?
Yes.
Across the, okay.
I would have not, I would not be here.
Okay.
So they did an excellent job there, and I told them that, and I told them that we have to promote our local hospital, and it has to get better and better. And with Dr. Stallone, it really is. That's his vision.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we get representation from different towns.
Okay. To your point, it's my understanding he wants to develop a trauma center. And my understanding is, being on the airport advisory board, they want to put a health board there. And I would push getting the trauma center on this side. Because we have, it's not just community care.
Yeah.
Remember community care, way back when we prayed to community care, you prayed to God the train wasn't coming through because you had to wait for the train to go by. And you hoped that the IVs were in and you got through. And nowadays, because of technology, you get same-day surgeries on this side. I propose this at the airport advisory board to work with Dr. Stallone and bring on this side, the trauma center. Because what's developing here is an emergency preparedness plan for the county. If you notice it, it's the airport, it's DOT someplace,
It's also the sheriff's department's up here. Everything here is in one area. Now, where that DOT ends up, that's for discussion. But where is everything going to be in case, God forbid, there's something that's really nasty happening? You know, but having said that, we all start with questions, but that is one thing I would talk to Dr. Stallone about, is that, I mean, in your vision 20 years from now, would you be at the hospital on the west side, or would you be on the, and what land is available, whether it's through Cornell or someone else, that can build it on this side? It seems like the growth now is on this side.
Yeah, and the population is on this side.
So, to your point, is there anything else you have?
No.
How about what we did today? Want to share that?
Oh, yeah.
About the audit?
We had an internal audit, and Charmaine prepared it, and it was quite good. And, we went through the different departments, and she showed us different entries, and how it immediately went to the bank, checking, and I thought it went very, very well.
Went full circle.
And,
Each department went through it. We're now back to doing internal audits, even though we've done this extensive external audit. But into Deb Munson's credit, she says, well, this has to be done by the 20th, so he said, the guy says, yes, it has to be done by the 20th. Internal audit, we just had an extensive review, so now we've done them both. Now we'll again do the external audit, hopefully in May, so that we'll get in front of this as opposed to, yeah, exactly. So that process, that discussion's already been started. Also talking to our auditor, Patrick Jordan. Okay, do we have to do both of these? Okay, we don't mind doing both of these. In all fairness, it took us about an hour to do it, a little bit more than that. But you go from seed to harvest, each different department. Whether the judges, code office, rec department, highway department, you see, here's where it starts, there's the transaction, done. So having said that, we've done this before, so I guess we're doing them again.
yeah.
So there we are. Okay. So another fun day at the town. So, anything else? If not, I'll go to Katrina. Okay. Self No. You're working, no. You're working with Patrick on the PR.
Which makes sense, planting plan. Well, I'll bring it up to the Friends of Salt Point
If you would.
at the next meeting, which is coming in.
Yes, you have a busy.
Well, Michael Long mentioned all the stuff in the planning board. Unfortunately, I can't make the meetings for the, usually can't make the meetings for the Water Sewer Advisory Board. But I've been actually coaching Pee Wee Wrestling again. We started it up a couple weeks ago, last week. That's my Tuesday, Thursday gig now. So that's going well.
Did they whip you into shape?
Like I said, it's herding cats. So, but it's fun. It's fun to be around the kids that way. So, and I might mention I'm a brand new grandfather.
Congratulations.
Which is quite humbling. Quite a way to look at things. But that's all I have.
Deb's been busy.
Busy tax month.
It's harvest time, right?
Is your head above water?
Well, we've had some excellent help there with Shelby, and also we have Laura working, and also Jessica. And it's all full steam ahead and stuff the coffers, which is why we want the investment policy and everything, because the coffers are full and we don't need to do any of the money so far. So, and that's what I have. Guys?
Yeah, just, you sort of touched on it. We have 3 water and sewer issues. District 5, we're waiting for final approval. District 3, we're waiting for it to go to the finance section at comptroller. And the intermunicipal sewer agreement sounds like we're going to go to one integrated agreement, which has been a goal for years. And just the village engineer has to get some language for some of the terminology that he wants in there, and then it's putting it all together, because it was written as an addendum to amend an agreement. They just wanted a new agreement, so pretty much all the nuts and bolts are there. We just need the new definition. So we wait on the village to do that. And again, I think February is a hopeful timeline. March might be a realistic one. But who knows? Maybe it'll come quick.
This is separate from including the airport in the district.
Yeah, this is just for Cherry Road, for Warren Road, and for District 1. It doesn't include any expansion. They're not providing, I think the mayor was very clear that they're not providing any additional gallons. That would be something that would be part of a much deeper dive in terms of capital improvement, capital planning, I&I resolution, and stuff like that. So it's not going to expand the existing allocation or capacity for any of the 3 districts at all.
It's just improving the formula for us.
Right, there might be more room than was anticipated because the actual EDU counts are much lower than the original calculations, but the allocation's the same. So we don't have more capacity, but we may theoretically end up with more permits to hook up.
So if my memory serves me right, it's 139,072 gallons a day is what's allowed. And it's based on 328 gallons per EDU. So it's about 494 EDUs. And so we through technology, we seem to have it comfortable with going rather than 328 down to 200 gallons a day, which means now we're up to 695 EDUs. So you found 200 EDUs for the same flow. It has been proposed that this the real number might be 100 gallons a day. But no one's comfortable with that yet because we have to be respectful of the transporters, which is the Village of Lansing, and the ones who do the product, which is the Village of Guys, so we work with them. What this means, though, without beating the drum too loud, is that we're finally going to, this is where Michael will come in, the other Michael, this Michael and the Michael behind you, is we're going to measure flow. So now you're going to get an extremely accurate reading on, as it goes through the pipe, how much flow are you allowed as opposed to EDUs. Let's crank this out and be a very conservative number. That may mean that they may not have to expand their sewer at all, which I don't think they can expand their sewer plant. I don't know if they have land or not. What that means is that our capacity now gets larger because we actually have an accurate flow, but we have enough meter data, which we're looking at new meters here, to do that. And one of the things we can do with the Cherry Road, that's a closed system. There is no more adding on to that. So by putting a meter in there, you can actually see, okay, what is your actual calculation compared to the actual. And what our job is to get the villages, especially Village of Kew Heights, which is on the hook for this, to get them comfortable with the numbers so that we can actually expand more capacity. At the same time doing the I&I, which is the inflow and infiltration, which is huge. So this is all something that, I mean, in all fairness, the 3 different municipalities are working together just like one family. It's like very respectful. What do you need? You first, you first, you first. I mean, to me, it's a win-win for everybody, and it lasted about an hour. It's about, we're done. Have a nice day.
There wasn't much concern with the actual terminology. It was just a matter of making sure that there was a back check that if we approach the EDU count or the gallons per day count, that once we reach 90% of the threshold, we pull back and relook at the formulas to make sure the village Village of Kew Heights didn't end up with a reportable overflow condition that would trigger some DEC concerns. So we don't want them to have any DEC concerns either, because that would increase our costs too.
When there's a bad rainstorm, it all dumps in. If there's leaks and the spikes, and you have so many spikes, the DEC says, will you do it? No, they would say you will do it. You do it now, we don't care what it costs you. So, yes. Okay. A couple things. Solar policy discussion. I like to get that done sooner than later. Maybe have people read over for the next month or so and then get some finalization on that. You've made some comments on that. And have the rest of the board look them over also. If you need them sent to you again, contact me. So the solar policy discussion was not just solar, it's the other things in there also.
It's all alternative.
It's all, yes, as far as that goes. Yeah. The STEP program discussion we did with the employees. I'd like to seriously look at that and stretch that. After the first 8 years, you maxed out on your amount that you have there with the bumps, and I'd like to stretch that out over more of a lifespan of an employee. Especially when you have most of the new ones here, they have just started, and the rest of them are all maxed out. So this is probably the best time to do that. Phase 2 of Cornerstone, there's been preliminary discussions with that. We haven't had a formal meeting yet with our subcommittee, which we will, or other discussions. There's been nothing definite there, but there is some notice now that we have, forgot, there's 5 or 6 excavators over there, backhoes, whatever, but I guess they're going to pour their concrete as best they can. Not this weekend. And eventually they'll get their trailer over there, they haven't used it.
No, the trailer's there.
Is it already? Good, good, good. Automatic front door, bathroom modifications. Lynn's been working on that. It looks to be about $2,500 per door for the bathrooms if you want to make them automatic, but we'll see what Lynn comes up with. Maybe just a push door open. That's up to his expertise. The front door is a little more expensive. That one's probably looking at about maybe 15 grand to do that because we're looking at anything more than that. Please jump in.
I haven't priced one in a long time.
Well, we also not only look at the door, but also the electric, everything else.
So we got both doors.
Pardon me?
You have both doors
Both doors.
operating.
Exactly right.
The one thing I will say about that is typically when they're in, the one door that's the operating door that you push the button for is harder to operate if you're not using the button. So, you know.
More resistance without the button.
Right.
And there's no issue with having it locked and unlocked that night for the one? We can lock it and people push the button, it's not gonna like jam up motors and stuff?
I don't think so.
We'll have those discussions when, but those are things that Lynn's been doing in his free time, which he has, he's doing higher stuff.
There's usually a switch.
Yeah.
Usually I have to turn the power off, that turns.
Okay.
Also, the generator for the town hall, Lynn's been working on that, getting quotes. We'll have something in the future for that. The MOU agreement we've discussed already. The I-9 concerns we've discussed already. Water districts 3, 4, 5, and 6 we've discussed already. Sewer district number 1 is in progress. We've discussed that already. Investment discussion with the RFP, 3 bids, multiple sources. We've discussed that already. Pavilion construction. Depending on what the weather does, the trusses are here under storage. And depending if the lads are not busy pushing the white stuff, we might be able to start working on it sooner than later. The money's there and we're ready to rock and roll. This also brings up another point, getting back to the site plan for the parking lot area is to work on the water line, go in the pavilion, work on the electric for the pavilion also. So all these conversations happen at the same time as the TCAC goes.
Right, Patrick said that running an electric line from the pavilion over to the bus stop would cost about $2,000. So I'm going to contact TCAC and see if they're willing to pay for the installation of the electric.
Good. Update for electrical for Myers Park, we discussed also with the tricks and treats, trunks and treats, treats and trunks. I've said it a number of times. Also, maybe do festival lights down there, so that's a discussion that we're trying to move everything down there. For Myers Park, it's fine. After school programs, we talked about that also, either moving them either to the library or moving them to the YMCA, or maybe we got the Pyramid Mall. That discussion is going on as we speak. Banner policy is something that we should also talk about. We talk about the flag policy. There is no banner policy right now. The Masons have asked to put their banner out also, just like the Lions do. I have tremendous conflict by not saying yes, because we do it for one, how can we not do it for the other? Boy Scouts do it, so right now, until we get a bona fide banner policy in place, we would do that. Dog park creation, we talked about.
Let's back to a minute. Do you have any idea what the criteria would be for the ban is?
Well, it would basically say, looking for new members, here's the contact number. That's what yeah, because they want, I mean, to their credit, they've done a lot of donations for the community. They've done a lot of donations for the pavilions down the park. They're an active participant of the community. And they simply said, geez, we see that you have a sign up for the Lions Club. Can we have one also? How can I say no?
No, I understand, and I'm not objecting to any of these banners. I just like to have a policy that give guidance to you, or, you know, and I'm just looking for ideas.
And so am I. And I would say that it would be somewhat, like they said, here's the name, here's the contact number. And there's something very as generic as that.
And probably nonprofit.
Nonprofit, or they can say anything that's generic, that's not political, you know, community member, community, whatever they want to do along those lines, that would be fine. I'm sure we can bounce some stuff off, maybe throw by a guy to make sure we have all the legal ease. But in the meantime, they want to put up, okay, join the Masons, here's the contact number. I have a very difficult time not saying yes to them. And that's been stated to them. Getting back to the dog park, that's something that you were concerned about, and we had a piece of land. Now comes the process. The process is, what is the process if we're going to use town land for that, what's the process to make sure that our other residents are in favor of it. These are all things, but that's something that I think we can discuss as far as where it should be. The proposal is right next to the parking lot where they have about 4.6 acres in that little hedgerow enclosed area where you park when you walk the path. Once again, I'm in favor of this. We tried this many years ago. That's not the point. The point is how we go through the process, and I'll let you take the lead on that, okay?
Yeah, I'm taking the lead on it, I'm starting things out in all my spare time.
There's a lot of going around, isn't there?
Yes.
Getting back to the rest of the meat of this is fund balance discussion. When the books finally close, and we should probably, within the next 2 weeks, get what the final numbers are, okay? That doesn't mean the AUD's done. That's going to be done a little bit later. What that means is that how much money we have left over. You got $337,500 from that town land. I would propose you put that in a separate account someplace because that is for something, for more improvements, whatever. You're going to have other balances over there. I'll do the projections that I have already. Once I get the final number, I'll be able to put that in. I'll show you, for instance, what the 6-month fund balance policies are, what those numbers are. I would propose that we put all the money in the reserves right now. All the reserve money, otherwise you're sitting right over here at 6 months fund balance, 5 months fund balance. It's roughly about $400,000 per month extra. I'd rather get the reserve in for the, talk about long-term plan, the grade office, about $450,000. No reason why we can't take 150 from the B fund or DB and 150 from the A fund to the DA in there, and have it in there now, so that if you need to do that later, you have the reserve, because the reserve is going to have to be board approved anyways, it's going to be town approved. Anyways, I'll give you a much more detailed plan as far as that goes.
I'd like to sit down with you, because I've been talking with Cricket about some of these numbers, and I'm starting to look more closely at that 5-year projection. I'd like to go over that with you.
Good, no problem. So that was the discussion of fund balance allocations. The other thing is that we had a good year this year as far as mortgage tax goes. Our projection was 250, came in I think at 529. So what do you do with that one-time money? Okay, that's why we project low for the revenues. I'd rather be pleasantly surprised and very disappointed. So that's where we're at. I'll get more details to you, and we can massage this back and forth with our emails or our hallway meetings we have with just 2 people or whatever. That's all I have right now, and I'd like to move into executive session unless you want to take a break first. Break, and then we'll move to executive session?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You have the new card here, Ed? I think you might have given the guy your card.
I have one. Is there a date on
They
it?
corrected one of their errors, it was great.
Did you want to say why we're going in? I'm sure.
I got.
I mean, just people might.
Yeah, this will be basically for medical financial credit